Let's dive right into this core question, because the platforms sell us a very specific, highly idealized dream, don't they? We're told that with just a camera and a Wi-Fi connection, absolutely anyone can be their own boss. But when you look at the actual data for small creators, and the industry usually defines that as anyone with under 10,000 subscribers or followers, a completely different picture emerges. There is this jarring disconnect between the public perception and the harsh ecosystem these creators navigate every single day. The myth promises wealth, creative freedom, and this uplifting community. But the reality? It's heavily weighted towards severe financial strain, a bizarre form of algorithmic serfdom, and deep psychological isolation. To deconstruct this myth, we're going to systematically explore 5 stark realities: the financial ghost town, being trapped by the algorithm, the psychological toll, systemic vulnerabilities, and finally, the creator lottery. Let's start with reality number 1, the financial ghost town. Just consider the sheer scale of uncompensated labor required to even unlock the monetization mirage on YouTube. Before a creator sees a single cent from ad revenue, they have to hit 1,000 subscribers and either 4,000 valid public watch hours or a staggering 10 million shorts views within a single year. Reaching those thresholds, that's not a weekend project. That can take years of consistent, entirely free labor. And hey, even after crossing that massive hurdle, creators are hit with industry math like CPM. That stands for cost per mil, which is just a fancy way of saying what an advertiser pays for 1,000 views. And outside of highly lucrative niches like, say, personal finance or tech, the CPM for a small creator is notoriously low. So the crucial point here is understanding the translation of those views into actual dollars, which honestly shocks people outside the industry. Think about how hard it is to get 10,000 people to stop scrolling and watch a video. What is that effort actually worth to the platform? It is staggering to realize that 10,000 sets of eyes might only net a creator anywhere from $10 to $50. That's it. It's incredibly sobering. A milestone that feels absolutely massive to a small creator translates to enough money for, what, a couple of modest meals? And that $10 to $50 doesn't even touch the overhead. When you factor in the capital needed to compete with massive production houses, we're talking professional microphones, lighting setups, monthly software subscriptions, the computing power just to render the video, you realize small creators are actually bleeding money. They operate at a net loss for years, basically paying for the privilege of creating. That brings us to reality number 2, trapped by the algorithm. Here's the thing. Creators do not own their distribution. They are entirely at the mercy of proprietary recommendation engines that prioritize one thing: keeping users on the platform. This creates what's known as the upload treadmill. Algorithms reward relentless consistency. For a small creator, taking just a week off can result in a catastrophic drop in impressions. They're trapped in this psychological cage where sickness, a family vacation, or just plain exhaustion simply cannot pause the treadmill. And this builds into an even deeper vulnerability. Imagine a small creator spends a whole month finding a format that finally resonates. Then, boom! Overnight, the platform tweaks its algorithm without any warning. The very next day, all that hard-won momentum is permanently erased. Unlike massive influencers who have fierce established fan bases to weather those storms, small creators can literally be wiped off the map by a single ghost update. Plus, right now, platforms are aggressively pushing short-form video to compete with TikTok. They strongly encourage shorts and reels, but when we compare the metrics, the reality is pretty bleak. Sure, shorts yield high view counts quickly, but they offer incredibly low payouts, and they rarely convert casual scrollers into dedicated community members. So creators find themselves working twice as hard, chasing metrics that simply don't translate into a sustainable career. Which leads us perfectly into section 3, the psychological toll. When you are the writer, the director, the editor, and the community manager, the line between your work and your identity gets really blurry really fast. The back-end analytics on these platforms provide real-time, hyper-detailed tracking. Staring at a 10 out of 10 rank, which means your news video is performing worse than your last 9, that triggers severe anxiety. As this quote captures perfectly, the system effectively reduces a human being's self-worth to a fluctuating, color-coded graph. Furthermore, there's zero barrier between the creator and the audience. Large creators have moderators, managers, and whole agencies to filter out the vitriol of the internet. Small creators, they read every single comment themselves.
And because they're so desperate for engagement to appease the algorithm, they often interact with bad faith critics and trolls, which leads to incredibly rapid emotional burnout with absolutely no structural protection.
This leads to a fascinating yet completely tragic phenomenon: identity fragmentation. To grow, the golden rule is to find a strict niche. But what happens when you outgrow that topic? If a creator tries to pivot, experiment, or just show some personal growth, the algorithm and their existing audience frequently punishes them by tanking their views. They basically become prisoners, acting out a specific persona that they themselves built.
Moving on to reality number 4, systemic vulnerabilities.
Large creators have direct partner managers and expensive legal teams. Small creators are essentially anonymous rows in a database. If their account gets hacked, mass-reported by bad actors, or struck by false claims, they face a terrifying gauntlet. They hit automated bot support walls, which often results in the permanent loss of years of work with zero right to appeal. And without legal backing, malicious entities frequently file fraudulent copyright claims, literally extorting the creator's meager revenue under the threat of channel deletion.
And then there are the predators built directly into the ecosystem. Multi-channel networks, or MCNs, specifically target smaller, desperate creators. They promise explosive growth in exchange for locking the creator into legally binding long-term contracts that siphon a massive percentage of their future earnings. The tragic reality is that these entities almost always deliver little to no actual value. They just act as a tax on the creator's hope.
This brings us to our final reality, number 5, the creator lottery.
The system is heavily marketed as a meritocracy, right? Work hard, make good videos, and you will succeed. But the data reveals it functions much more like a lottery. The platforms brilliantly highlight the top 1% of creators who achieve massive wealth and fame, basically using them as living advertisements. However, the entire infrastructure of the digital economy relies entirely on the 99%. Millions of unrecognized small creators providing the massive volume of free or hyper-cheap labor necessary to keep users scrolling and ad revenue flowing directly into the platform's pockets.
Let's dive straight into this explainer, and honestly, let's just validate a frustration that is so incredibly real for solo creators right now. If you spent any time on the platform recently, you've probably felt this massive shift. You're sitting there doing the script writing, the shooting, the lighting, the audio, and the editing all by yourself. And then, suddenly, you're competing against a massive production house that has a dedicated thumbnail designer, a whole room of writers, and an editor using top-tier motion graphics. It feels completely unfair, doesn't it? Well, today, we're going to break down exactly how you can master viewer retention and actually outmaneuver these Hollywood-level operations using absolutely zero budget.
To keep us on track, here's a quick roadmap for what we're covering today. First, the Hollywood invasion. Second, the small creator advantage. Third, the H.O.O.K framework. Fourth, free visual tricks. And finally, winning the algorithm.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the Hollywood YouTube invasion. You know, it genuinely feels like the goalposts have completely moved. Mainstream stars are flocking to the platform, and they're bringing this heavy corporate playbook with them. We're talking pre-existing capital, built-in distribution networks, and massive industry connections. But if you look closely at where they actually fail, you'll see what's called the Hollywood trap. They fall hard into overproduction, where the content just feels too corporate and, frankly, artificial. They get totally stuck in these rigid TV formats, whereas a small creator can pivot overnight to capture a trending subculture, and the big guys rely way too much on celebrity metadata to carry, honestly, boring content. But here's the secret: the algorithm evaluates frame by frame, and it will bury a boring piece of content, I don't care who is starring in it.
Which brings us right to Section 2, the small creator advantage.
So this right here is your ultimate slingshot. Sure, you don't have their massive budget, but you have agility. Big studios literally need millions of views just to justify their payrolls. They can't afford to make a highly specific guide for, say, beginner motorcycle mechanics in their 30s. But you absolutely can. You can own a hyper-specific niche that they are simply too big to care about. Second, you have to double down on true relatability. Think about it. Audiences go to celebrities to be entertained from a distance, right? But they go to independent creators to feel like they're just hanging out with a friend. So speak directly to the camera, lean into the raw charm of your solo setup, and just be honest. Authenticity consistently outperforms a multi-camera studio shoot every single time.
Moving right along to Section 3, the H.O.O.K framework.
Now, to really maximize your advantage, you need a system. We have all heard this line a million times, right? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. Listen to me, this is a massive mistake. Never, ever start with a branded intro animation, some spinning 3D logo, or this kind of generic greeting. The algorithm is aggressively tracking drop-offs in the first minute. By wasting those critical first 10 seconds, you're failing to prove to the viewer that they're in the right place, and they are absolutely going to click away. So instead of that awful, generic quote, you need to offer an immediate promise. You want verbal and visual confirmation of your title and thumbnail the literal second things start. Don't say, in today's video, we are going to look at, no, lead with the core struggle. A perfect, psychologically driven alternative highlighted in our sources is something like, most solo creators spend 10 hours editing the first minute of their content only to watch the retention chart plummet in the first 5 seconds. Today, we're fixing that using zero budget. Boom, immediate payoff. They know exactly why they are there.
And here is the exact 60-second architecture to keep them totally glued to the screen. From 0 to 10 seconds, deliver that immediate promise. That's the hook. Then, from 10 to 25 seconds, lower their guard with a little empathy. Acknowledge their reality by saying something like, look, you don't need a 5-person crew to hold attention. Then, from 25 to 45 seconds, give them the overview, a quick, clear micro roadmap so they understand the structure. And finally, the kickoff. By second 45, your intro is completely over. Drop direct value and go straight into your first actionable point before that 60-second mark even hits.
All right, on to section 4, free high-retention visual tricks.
Now that your script architecture is completely dialed in, you can use these 4 visual anchors to basically reset your viewer's attention span. First up, the physical cut. If you're using free software, no problem. Just crop the frame in slightly, maybe at 10% zoom, on a cut for your next sentence and then zoom back out. Super simple. Next, change your focal point. Just moving your physical body changes the whole geometry of the frame. Lean into the camera for a really complex point and then step back for a broad overview. Third, the clean text pop. Forget the crazy complex animations, just flash a single keyword on screen in a really basic font for less than 2 seconds. And finally, combine that with sound effect anchors. Adding a subtle whoosh or a little pop right when that text appears. It takes 5 seconds to edit, costs literally nothing, and instantly triggers the brain to snap back to attention.
And that leads us perfectly into our final section, number 5, winning the algorithm game.
Ultimately, you are never going to outspend traditional media, but you can absolutely beat them by mastering these 2 metrics. Because the algorithm honestly doesn't care about 3D motion graphics or expensive celebrity cameos. It cares about viewer satisfaction, and that is measured primarily by click-through rate, or CTR, and average view duration, AVD. Master your CTR by making sure your title and thumbnail make a really honest, compelling promise, and master your AVD by keeping your pacing incredibly tight, hooking them in the first 5 seconds, and delivering on that promise without wasting a single second of their time.
Because at its core, this whole platform is simply an audience matching machine. The landscape is undeniably tougher now, and the baseline for quality is way higher than it used to be. But ask yourself this. Can you answer a specific question or entertain a specific group of people better and more authentically than a generic high-budget television crew? Because if you lean into your specific niche and genuinely respect your viewers' time, you have a massive edge that Hollywood literally cannot buy.